The Proven Ground catback that we have here today will be one of the most affordable full stainless systems on the site, available for your 2014 through 2018 5.3 Silverado at home, while also giving you a little bit of flexibility with how you like the system to look. Now, interested owners can look forward to a 409 grade stainless steel build throughout. It does include your chambered muffler design, which will allow for an aggressive yet modest tone overall. Now, price point is going to live in that mid to high $500 range, and the install, according to the site, will get a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and take about 3 hours or so to complete from start to finish. But as is tradition, let's just jump right into the sound you can expect here with the Proven Ground system bolted up to your Silverado. And as I described at the top of this video, guys, it's certainly going to be a noticeable increase in sound over your factory system, but at the same time, it's not ridiculous, it's not over the top, and that's probably one of the things I enjoy most about this particular option. Listen, on the other hand, if you want one of the loudest trucks on the block, well, there will certainly be other louder options to choose from. So breaking out my Wake the Neighbor scale here, guys, I got this thing coming in middle of the road, 3 out of 5 on my 1 to 5 or 1 to Wake the Neighbor scale. Again, solid bark, but it's certainly still pretty livable at the end of the day. Inside the truck, on the other hand, you certainly hear things a little bit. That is the case, I would say, with majority of your aftermarket options, but this one being relatively tame outside is still pretty tame on the inside while cruising as well. But let's move into quality and construction, guys. And again, as I mentioned earlier at the top of this video, you're currently looking at one of the most affordable full stainless systems in the category for this particular gen and for the 5.3. Now, with that being said, you can expect 409 grade stainless steel to be exact here, which is going to be kind of like your mid-level material behind the 304 grade stainless on your top end, typically most expensive, and of course you have your aluminized steel on the low end, typically the most budget friendly. Now, the 409 is no doubt still a very solid material. You're still getting great corrosion resistance. So even if you live in upstate New York, salty, snowy area, this is certainly going to hold up to the abuse over the years far better than an aluminized steel system. Now, aside from the material, you are also receiving a combination of that 2.5 inch and 3 inch mandrel bent tubing, which does lead into and out of your chambered muffler here. And then that is all going to exit out of the 3.5 inch polished tips, which, by the way, these guys have actually been made from that premium 304 grade stainless we just talked about. And let's face it, that's the most important, right? Because that's what you're ultimately going to see the most of. But maybe my favorite part about this system, besides the very low price point and that full stainless build, is the fact that Proven Ground does kick in the necessary pipes to allow you to run this system either as a dual rear exit or a dual side exit. And that's something that not a lot of companies are really offering, especially at this price point. So if you did ever want to switch it up, it's just literally 2 bolts to swap out a couple clamps, swap out the corresponding tail pipe pieces, as you can see here, and that's pretty much it. Now, obviously, we'll have to change over your tips as well, but really straightforward, can probably be done in a matter of minutes. Last but not least, guys, the Proven Ground option does toss in all of your necessary clamps, all your hardware, everything needed to get this thing bolted up from start to finish. Now, this is a perfect time to segue into the installation process, guys. Again, site does claim there might be a little bit of trimming involved here depending on your cab and bed length, but the instructions will be very clear for you here, and most people probably won't encounter much cutting, if at all. But with all that said, guys, what do you say we grab our toolbox, let's head out to the garage and show you our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools needed for this install include a ratchet, a 1/2 inch socket, a 16mm socket, a 17mm socket, a 14mm wrench, an impact gun, an exhaust hanger tool, and some penetrating lubricant. Hey everybody, we're going to be showing you how to install the exhaust on your 1418 Silverado 1500. But before we do that, we have to uninstall the stock exhaust. We've already done this on this truck, so we're going to go ahead and show you a clip of how to do that. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
All right, so the first step in our install is to remove this clamp at the front of our exhaust. Make sure your truck is in the air and supported. You don't need a lift, but it does help. So go ahead and find that bolt. We're going to remove it now. All right, grab your 13mm socket and we're going to loosen this clamp right at the front of the exhaust. All right, now moving on to the hanger that's right behind the clamp that we took off. I'm going to remove it at the top here, just because it's a little easier to get the tool on You can either take the top off or the bottom section. Make sure that the exhaust is supported when you're doing this because it will start to come down as you take the hangers off. All right, moving on to the center section that sits about over the axle. We're gonna remove the hangers on both sides. Using the same process, we're using a hanger tool, makes it super easy. You can just pry these off as well. And again, make sure that the exhaust is supported because we're removing the hangers, it will start to sag down and eventually drop. And finally, remove the hanger at the rear. This is the last thing holding your exhaust up, so be ready for it to come down. All right, so at this point we can remove our exhaust, and it is one piece, so it will take a little bit of finagling. I suggest you grab a friend for this step. What we're gonna do is go backwards, and we're gonna be twisting while we're lifting, so this front part can clear. All right, and then once it clears up front, you can go ahead and move it forward. Just have to finagle the exhaust over the axle a bit, and then you should be good to go.
All right, now that we've got our stock exhaust off, we're gonna go ahead and start the install process. And the first thing we're gonna do is put on this additional hanger. Since this is a dual side exit exhaust, we gotta put another hanger on the driver's side rear of the truck. So we're gonna take this hanger right here. It's gonna face in towards the spare tire like this, up on the frame rail up here. You've got a bolt, a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on here. So these three are gonna come off on the back. We're gonna go ahead and put this up there. All right, so we're gonna go right up here, just past this crossbar on the frame rail. We're gonna put the bolt through just like that. We're gonna take our washer, the lock washer, and then the nut. I'm gonna get this started by hand. Tighten down a little bit, make sure I have this where I want it. I'm gonna try and keep this pretty much even with the frame. Okay. So now that we've got that hand tight and sort of where we want it, I'm gonna put the 14mm wrench on the outside here, put our ratchet on the inside, and tighten this down. Make sure you torque it to spec. And while we're back here, I'm just gonna take the new exhaust hanger bushing right there and slide it on. We're gonna come back to this later. All right, next we're gonna come back up towards the front of the truck, right behind the catalytic converter where we undid our stock exhaust. We have a new clamp in this system. It's got a bit of a rounded edge to it, so you'll be able to tell it apart from the other ones. This is a 1/2-inch bolt. We're gonna make sure that is facing us. We're gonna slide it over the flange on the catalytic converter. Next, we're gonna take this big extension pipe with the flex pipe on it here, slide it up over the frame rail, so it meets up with the back of the catalytic converter. While we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and slide this into the exhaust hanger. And I've also got a transmission jack here to help hold this pipe up because we've got a bunch of pieces we gotta get together. And this is just gonna help make sure the alignment is good. Once you've got that lined up a little bit better, we're gonna come back over here to our clamp on the flange. We're gonna get this on top of the other part as well. And we're gonna start to tighten this down, but not tighten it all the way because we wanna make sure we have some room for adjustment to make sure the exhaust is aligned properly. I'm gonna take my 1/2-inch ratchet here, just to tighten this down a little bit. Just enough that it's not gonna come out, but we still have a little bit of wiggle room here. Now that the extension pipe is on, this is the point at which you may need to make a cut depending on the cab or bed length of your truck. Since our truck is a crew cab with a 6.5-foot bed, we are not gonna be making any cuts here. But if you happen to have a longer bed, there is an extension to the extension pipe that is included in the kit. And if you have a shorter cab or a shorter bed, you may need to cut a little bit off of this, but it is only just this one cut. For now though, we are gonna go ahead and install our muffler. So in order to do that, we're gonna need one of the 3-inch clamps that is included in the kit. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this onto the extension pipe, get it out of the way. And then we're gonna take the muffler just like this. Now this is a single in, dual out muffler. You're gonna wanna make sure that this inlet here is closest to the outside of the truck. So this is gonna be pretty close to the frame rail. This is gonna allow for extra clearance when we do the rest of the install. So you're gonna go ahead and slide this on as best you can. I've got my extension pipe also supported with a transmission jack, and I would recommend you do the same. Just gonna slide this in so you don't have a gap here. And then you're gonna go ahead, put your clamp into place, and tighten this down a little bit. Just like the other one, you don't have to go all the way, but I would suggest getting this a little bit tight because it is gonna help with alignment later. Right, now that we've got the muffler installed on the extension pipe, we're gonna start putting on the over axle pipes. We're gonna start on the driver's side. So the first thing we're gonna need to grab is one of these 2.5-inch clamps. There are 5 in the kit. These are gonna be a little bit smaller and they're actually pretty clearly marked so you know which ones you're gonna use. We're gonna go ahead and slip that guy right on over top of this pipe. And then we're gonna come back here and this is gonna feed up over the differential around the side of the spare tire. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get this wiggled into my muffler first, just for clearance sake. Once you've got that where you want it, you should be able to go ahead and slide that right onto the rubber hanger, make some final adjustments. Once we're done with that, we're just going to tighten up this clip a little bit. Again, just like the others, making sure we don't go too far because we are gonna need to make adjustments later. Next, we're gonna go ahead and install the over axle pipe on the passenger side of the truck. So we're gonna take another one of these 2.5-inch clamps. We're gonna slide that onto the right-hand side of the muffler so we have that where it needs to be. And we're gonna feed this pipe up over top of the axle itself. Get these hooks into the rubber mounts. Once you've got them in, you're just gonna slide the pipe into the back of the muffler. Okay, now that we've got the over axle pipe hung on the rubber hangers, we're just gonna go ahead and work this into the muffler until we don't see a gap anymore. It's gonna take some finagling, so just work it back and forth until you get it seated properly. Once you've got that in, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this down a little bit, not too tight because we are gonna wanna leave room for adjustments later. Now that we've got the 2 over axle pipes most of the way on and completed, we're gonna go and finish that last piece with this one for the driver's side. So again, you're gonna take one of those 2.5-inch clamps, slide it on here, then we're gonna get this one slid onto that over axle pipe as best we can. You're gonna hook it into this isolator right here, the one that we installed earlier. Now this is a situation where I'm gonna add a little bit of penetrating lubricant because this is pretty tight. So we wanna have a little extra help getting that in there. Once you've got that on, we can adjust it a little bit more later. We're gonna go ahead, slide that clamp back to the place where the pipes connect. Again, taking our ratchet, we're gonna tighten this down, not all the way, just enough to get it so where the pipes are not gonna move until we need them to. Right about there should be good. That gives us a little bit more room for adjustment as we finish this up. All right, so now we're almost at the end of the install, but this is the point at which you need to make a choice. So this exhaust gives you 2 different options for where you can have the tips exit, either straight out of the back, underneath the bumper, or out of the side, right behind the rear wheel. So if you're gonna do outside behind the rear wheel, you're gonna use these 2 connectors, slide them on to that over axle pipe, and then the tips are gonna come out right here. Nice part is you do have a little bit of adjustability, so if you want to angle them down a bit, you can do that. For our purposes today though, we are going to have ours exit straight out of the back underneath of the bumper. So ours are going to go on just like this. So again, just like all the other pieces, we're going to take that 2.5-inch clamp, slide it on here, get this onto the pipe, and we're going to tighten this down a little bit. This one we're definitely going to need to make some adjustments to later because we're going to make sure we get the tips just where we want them. Okay, and we'll go ahead and repeat that on the other side. Again, same thing over here, just putting the clamp on, sliding this onto the over axle pipe here. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it down a little bit. Giving us just enough to adjust these tips as we do those next. All right, so the last thing we got to do here to get everything on the truck is to put on the tips. So these do have a clamp already on them, so we're just going to go ahead and slide these onto this last section of pipe, and then we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Now the nice part about these is that you do have the ability to adjust them, so if you want them to stick out a little bit more, you can do that. For our purposes, I'm gonna push these in a little bit so they're almost flush with the bumper. And you can sit back here and make sure that cut is angled just the way that you want it. Once you've got that on, you're gonna go ahead, take your ratchet, tighten it down. Now we're gonna put the driver's side tip on. Again, just like the other side, you're gonna slide that right on. You can check the alignment, make sure that slash cut is where you want it. And again, if you want this to stick out a little bit more, you can do that here. We're gonna push ours all the way in. And because clearances are a little tight here, I'm gonna take a regular ratchet. I'm just gonna go up here and tighten this down. This is also a 16mm bolt. All right, now that we've got everything together and on the truck, now is the time to go back and start making some adjustments. You may need to adjust some of the clamps, tighten some things down, and kind of twist the pipes a little bit just to get everything to fit because there are a lot of pieces here. So just take some time, tighten things up, get them the way that you want them, and once you've got that done, go ahead, go back through all those clamps and make sure you tighten them down and torque them to spec. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and tighten the bolts on these clamps at the back of the muffler. That's going to wrap it up for our review and install of the Proven Ground dual exhaust system with polished tips for 2014 to 2018 5.3 liter Silverado 1500s. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, for all things Silverado, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.